Every era has its reigning queen diva. The 2000s gave us Beyoncé, the 90s had Madonna, and inside the 70s and 80s, that throne belonged to none apart from the unstoppable Barbara Mandrell. Whether she became singing, dancing, or acting, Barbara owned the degree with the form of electricity that made each highlight shine a little brighter. She even took over television for 2 years along with her hit rain show. And it wasn't just about wonderful. She dominated, or speak me serious accolades. 2 Grammys, 4 ACMS, 4 CMS, 7 American Music Awards, 9 CMT Awards, and 9 People's Choice Awards. Oh, and allows now not forget, she turned into the first artist to win the CMAs 2 times in a row. But in 1984, everything changed. A devastating tragedy shook up her existence and in the end marked the beginning of the stop of her career. So what honestly made one of the country music's brightest stars step fair away from the highlight? And what has Barbara been as much as on the grounds that? Well, stick around because in this video we're uncovering the truth at the back of Barbara Mandrell's surprising goodbye and how she's been living lifestyles her way ever in view that. See, Barbara became the vacation wonder for her dad and mom, Mary Ellen and Herbie Mandrell. She'd become born on Christmas Day 1948 in Houston, Texas and turned into the oldest of 3 sisters. Barbara grew up surrounded by way of song. Her mom was a song teacher, her dad turned into a police officer, and the entire residence became packed with units and singing. The circle of relatives later moved to Corpus Christi, where Barbara's herbal talent commenced to polish. She had an ear for harmony and fast picked up the accordion earlier than she even hit 1st grade. When Barbara was 6, the circle of relatives packed up and moved to Oceanside, California, wherein her dad opened a music shop. She didn't leave out a beat, joining the faculty band and mastering the saxophone. But the actual game changer became the steel guitar. After classes with a family buddy, Barbara turned into so top that her dad took her to a music trade show in Chicago. There she wowed country's superstar Joe Mathis, who right now delivered her on stage in Las Vegas. And much like that, Barbara, who is nevertheless a child on the Time by the Manor, was playing metallic in front of large crowds. Soon she changed into a normal at the TV display town hall party and traveling with legends like Johnny Cash and Patsy Cline. At 14, her mother and father fashioned the Mandrell family band with Barbara on steel guitar, her mom on piano, and her dad singing. They toured military bases, playing the whole thing from United States of America hits to Beatles tunes. Barbara wasn't pretty much tuned even though she one way or the other discovered time to win Miss Oceanside, California in 1965 and stay concerned in school sports. After graduating in 1967, Barbara married the band's drummer, Ken Dudney, and decided to take a damage from acting, but the degree was in her blood. When Ken became deployed for his Navy career, Barbara visited her dad and mom in Nashville, and she couldn't just take a seat within the audience. She had to be on degree. Her dad became her manager, and soon she was back acting in Nashville's Printer's Alley. Her talent blew all of us away, and Columbia Records signed her in 1969. And just like that, Barbara Mandrell was on her way to turning into a rustic tune icon. Now, Barbara's early career had a unique twist. Because she wasn't simply a rustic singer, she combined things up with the aid of protecting R&B and soul tracks. Her first-rate single got here in 1969 with I've Been Loving You Too Long to Stop Now, an Otis Redding cowl that got her at the Billboard United States charts. The following 12 months, she hit the top 20 with Playing Around with Love, a track written by using producer Billy Sherrill. She stored the ball rolling with covers of hits like Aretha Franklin's Do Right Woman, Do Right Man, and Roy Head's Treat Him Right. In 1971, Mandrell released her first album, Treat Him Right, which covered her charting singles and a few covers of songs through artists like Joe South and Ivory Joe Hunter. That identical year, she gained the Academy of Country Music's Top New Female Vocalist Award and earned a coveted spot on the Grand Ole Opry via 1972. Her first massive solo top 10 hit changed into Tonight My Baby's Coming Home. Then in 1972, she observed up with every other solid chart overall performance with Show Me. During this time, she additionally teamed up with U.S. singer David Houston for numerous duets, and that they have been a hit with audiences. Their tune, After Final Time, climbed into the top 10, and that they persevered to chart collectively until 1974, even liberating a duet album called A Perfect Match. Critics had been drawn to Mandrell's manner of blending S.A. and soul. Her sound had grit and her transport gave her songs an electricity that stood out. But notwithstanding her skills, it from time to time felt like Columbia Records didn't pretty understand a way to form her fashion. Some of her cloth seemed to blur into what other artists on the label had been doing, which held her back from simply defining her personal identification. Her actual leap forward got here in 1973 with the Midnight Oil, a music approximately a girl snarled in an affair. The Unmarried reached the Pinnacle 10 and driven her album to the pinnacle of the charts too. She kept her United States soul groove going with this time I Almost Made It in 1974. Even with those successes, Mandrell from time to time struggled with self-belief, feeling like she wasn't as talented or polished as others. However, her father's encouragement kept her going. By 1975, geared up for a sparkling start, she left Columbia Records to explore new possibilities and take her career to the subsequent degree. Barbara Mandrell's profession without a doubt took off in 1975, when she signed with the BC Records, which later merged with MCA Records. With producer Tom Collins, by using her aspect, Mandrell started mixing pop elements into her song, making her sound extra reachable to a broader target market. Her first hit beneath the brand new label, Standing Room Only, climbed into the Pinnacle 5 at the US of A charts, setting the degree for what become to return. More hits accompanied like That's What Friends Are For and Midnight Angel. Collins also introduced some R&B taste to Mandrell's repertoire, which turned out to be a smart move. Her covers of Denise LaSalle's Few Married But Not to Each Other and Shirley Brown's Woman to Woman in 1977 made waves on both the American and Canadian United States charts. Even breaking into this crossover fulfillment helped her 6th and 7th albums make a mark that By the overdue 70s, Mandrell had found her area of interest with songs approximately love, heartache and cheating, issues that resonated deeply together with her audience. In 1978, she hit her first #1 with Sound Asleep Unmarried in a Double Bed. The subsequent 12 months, her cowl of Luther Ingram's If Loving You Is Wrong, I Don't Want to Be became Some Other Damage, topping the US charts and crossing over to pop and adult present-day charts. These hits came from her famous albums Moods and Just for the Record, both landing within the Billboard Top 10. Mandrell wasn't only a hitmaker, she knew the way to put on a show. Her concert events had been complete on productions, with choreography, dress modifications, and moments where she showcased her talent on a couple of devices. One of these performances was even changed into a TV unique known as The Lady is a Champ. Her celebrity becomes shining brilliant, and in 1979 she took home the Country Music Association's Female Vocalist of the Year award. The early 80s had been even larger. She co-hosted the NBC variety display Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell Sisters with her siblings, making her a household call, and earning her back-to-back Entertainer of the Year awards from the CMA in 1980 and 1981. Her chart success persisted with hits like Crackers, The Best of Strangers, and the anthem I Was Country When Country Wasn't Cool. Her first live album in 1981 even went gold, proving her staying power, handing over primary hits like Till You're Gone and One of a Kind Pair of Fools. She additionally branched into gospel with He Set My Life to Music, earning her first Grammy. Her 1984 duets with Lee Greenwood produced greater hits, which includes To Me, However Then, on 9/11's 1984, Everything Came Crashing Down, changed into a nightmare when the car she became in collided head-on with some other car after the alternative driving force crossed the center line. The crash, no longer handiest, left Barbara severely injured, however, additionally tragically killed the other motive force. In an instantaneous, everything she had labored for, the repute, the glitz, the career felt distant and meaningless. The loss of lifestyles, the ache and the uncertainty that accompanied had become a heavy burden for Barbara and her own family. The physical toll turned into monstrous. Barbara suffered a broken leg, a concussion, and several different accidents that required months of restoration. She changed into forced to take a destroy from her profession, something that would have been nearly unthinkable to her only 12 months previous. But it wasn't just the physical ache that was tough to conquer. The emotional weight of understanding a person had lost their life because the coincidence weighed closely on her, and it made her question the very nature of her fame and the fragility of lifestyles itself. Her youngsters, though not significantly injured, also felt the trauma of the occasion, including extra pressure to an already difficult situation. But Barbara wasn't one to backtrack without problems. Even although it would take her extra than a year to fully get better bodily, she ultimately made her go back to the track scene, more potent than ever. Yet she wasn't the equal person she had been earlier than the coincidence. The crash modified her attitude on existence, reputation, and the significance of safety. It became a turning point in her lifestyles, leading her to grow to be a fierce recommend for seatbelt use. Especially after she learned her circle of relatives hadn't always accompanied the fine safety practices. Despite the silver lining of her newfound advocacy, the emotional and criminal battles persisted. The own family of the driving force, a young guy named Mark White, turned into soon on the middle of a felony dispute after Barbara and her husband, Ken Dudney, determined to sue them for $10.3 million in damages. As anticipated, the decision to file the lawsuit truly raised eyebrows. Fans were short to criticize Barbara Mandrell and her husband, Ken Dudney, feeling it was in horrific flavor given the tragedy that it opened up. It regarded like they had been trying to make cash off the situation, but the reality behind the lawsuit was an awful lot more complex. It wasn't approximately capitalizing on a sad event, it was approximately getting the economic guide they needed to recover. They needed to take the step, no longer due to the fact they wanted to, however, because the coverage company wasn't coming via and they needed to steady what they were owed. Still, the public didn't exactly see it that way. They were caught between feeling sympathy for Barbara, who had gone via so much, and questioning whether or not suing the other motive force's circle of relatives changed into an excessive amount of too soon. It had become a whole aspect, a debate about what's proper. In the face of tragedy, what is justified, and wherein the line among commercial enterprise and personal loss receives drawn. It wasn't simply movie star gossip anymore, it became approximately navigating grief, responsibility, and the difficult international of public perception. Despite the backlash, Barbara did not allow it prevent her. She took the hit, each publicly and emotionally, but in the end, she failed to live down for by the cease of the 80s, she changed into returned in the sport, picking up in which she left off, and proving that she ought to get better from whatever. By 1987, Barbara Mandrell was still very tons in the sport, signing a new recording agreement with EMI America,